heard from Daly?
She probably haven't in a minute.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. If y'all would, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here she is.
Alderman Miller, would you give our invocation, please?
Thank you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, once again, Lord, we come before you to first tell you thank you. Thank you for this day that you have given us. But most of all, Lord, we thank you for the opportunity that you have given each and every one of us to serve, whatever capacity it might be for this community and this city. We ask you, Lord, that whatever we're doing tonight will be pleasing in thy sight. Lord, let everything that we do, Lord, be for the betterment of this city. We thank you, Lord, for this great country that we live in, this great nation, this great state, this great county, and most of all, this great city. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, I want to make note that Alderman Doc Harris is in attendance remotely here, and he will be listening and voting with us. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 5 is the docket of claims. Can I have a motion on that?
Hey, Mayor, I had a quick question about that. I noticed the DeCrua true-up,
Yes.
it's an annual true-up.
That is the annual true-up. So we used more, or sent more sewage to DeCrua than was estimated in the past year.
Is that, I guess, is that part of our I&I issue that we've been trying to,
It most likely is. It probably is.
where are we at on just like the smoke testing and just all those things to kind of address some of that?
So the smoke testing in Old Town Hernando that's being done with the ARPA money and with the ARPA match from the state, the smoke testing has been completed. We're waiting on Pickering Engineering to give us the report. And then after the report, then they'll start issuing bids for people to come out and do the repairs on that one. And we are still working on application for the bigger one through the other engineering company. And that would be up in the other part of town that we're not doing with ARPA grant. So it is in process.
Okay. That's just it was a significant number, so it definitely,
It certainly was.
okay.
Can I have a motion to approve the docket of claims?
Motion.
Second. Are you?
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 6 is to approve the minutes from the regular Mayor and Board of Aldermen meeting of April 2nd, 2024.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 7, can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 8 is the amended personnel docket. Can I have a motion on that?
So move.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Item 9 is the donations docket. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 10 is an approval to transfer the F-150 truck with the VIN number listed from Animal Control to Public Works.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion passes. Item 11 is an approval to enter into an agreement with Magnolia Wildlife to install a pollinator garden on the vacant front lawn at 2601 Elm Street. She has spoken with Stephen Pittman. He's going to draw up a little hold harmless agreement to protect the city if anything were to happen there. We thought it was a good idea. She came to our staff with that idea and wants to just put a pollinator garden out there to engage the youth. They'll be helping her with the project, and it's kind of an educational thing she's trying to do. And it's nothing permanent, so if we decide to do something with that property later in the future, we could do that.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 12 is the approval of the LCWF Park Grant Application Submission Resolution. Gia noted late that we needed to have an official resolution from the board for that grant application, so Stephen put that together for us.
Motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 13 is an approval to add a for-profit fee of $200 to be required at the time of reservation of an outdoor facility rental in order to charge any form of admission, sell concessions, or sell any other form of goods and/or services on city property. Is there any discussion or a motion on that?
Look good, Mr. Pittman? So move.
Second.
So motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next up is a new parks program that we would need approval from the board called the Language Exchange Program. I think Daly's going to come up and do a short presentation, tell us what that's about.
Okay. Very excited. Estoy muy emocionada para esta clase. I started taking Spanish a couple years ago and decided that I was never going to truly advance until I took a leap out of my comfort zone and connected with a language exchange partner. So I can say from experience, you need to be with a native speaker and hear the language to really learn the language. You think about a child, they don't go to class first and learn grammar and spelling and reading and writing. They learn from their parents. They hear, it's repetition. So this class is about repetition. It'll start off real small. We're going to have one table, probably 8 people. We'll go around, we'll introduce ourselves in our native language so people can hear the language spoken. And then only when you're comfortable, you can speak your target language. Every week, we'll have a large picture. They can point at, these are trees, arboles, whatever. And through repetition, my hope is that they'll start to acquire some of these words and kind of reinforce that. But to me, it's not just about this. It's giving them the confidence to speak, the boldness to try to meet someone that speaks the other language, and hopefully maybe they'll connect and find them a language exchange partner, as I did. Mine's from Mexico City, so not here. But I think it'll be a huge, just a plus, something new for our department nobody else is doing. So that's it.
It's a great idea. Does anybody have any questions? If not, is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Daly, thank you for bringing that to us. Item 15 is the approval to enter into an agreement with Lobos Rush Soccer Club to hold a one-week camp at the Hernando Soccer Complex for the dates June 10th through 14th and June 17th through 21. It'll be open to the public for birth years of kids 2018 to 2011.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 16 is approval for the Community Foundation of Northwest Mississippi, which is a nonprofit, to use the Gale Center at no cost for a meeting of nonprofits on Friday, June 21st from 8:30 to 1:30.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no, and that motion passes. Well, the parks have got a lot of stuff on the agenda tonight. Item 17 is the approval to adopt the proposed rules listed on your agenda for the city park playgrounds. Is there a motion on that item?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 18 is the approval of the lowest and best bid of $1,032,654 from the Donald Smith Company for Byhalia Getwell Road Water Plant Well. The MDEQ agreement is listed there. This is one of what's going to probably be 3 different bids on the water plant, water tower. Joe Frank, if you would like to kind of update the board on that. And this will be paid for with ARPA funds and an ARPA match.
Okay, yesterday we were hoping for some bids, but we only got one bid yesterday. It was, like the mayor said, from Donald Smith Company, for the well we need at the water plant, near the intersection of Byhalia Road and Getwell Road, kind of west of that intersection, out on a piece of property that's, I guess we acquired from that planned unit development there, on an acre of land they donated for the water plant. And so this would be, I guess, the first of 3 things. This is the well that goes with the plant. The plant sits there on that same piece of property, and we should be able to bid that in about another month. We've almost got the plans ready on that. And then the elevated tank is the third part of it, and it's going to be down on Madison Lakes property. So working on that too, trying to get that ready.
What do we budget for this project? Is this close to what we budgeted?
So, sir?
What do we budget for? That's $1,032,000. How much did we budget for that? Is that kind of within what we were thinking?
The estimate was $900,000.
A little bit more, but not too bad.
And I think we're going to be running into that. I think everybody's going to start running into that because there's just a lot of jobs to bid, and there's not enough people to do all the work. And so we're trying to get going a little bit before the other people do.
And Joe is trying to get some cost savings by bidding these individually. If we would have bid the whole thing together, then the general contractor would have put a markup on all 3 of these different things. So we're bidding them as 3 separate projects to try to keep costs in line. But we are a little nervous about the overall. I think the overall budget we had was $3.9 million for the whole deal.
This one where we're getting matching, or I know some of our stuff we're not going to get matching maybe.
This is one we will get matching on. It's been advertised on the MP TAP program.
Right. So I
Any other
guess
questions?
We're here tonight to present that to you for acceptance, to sign them to a contract.
If there's no more questions, can I have a motion?
Are we good from a standpoint of, we only got one bid back?
Only got
I mean,
one.
I
We
know we
asked,
went
and had an interest in Lane Central Company there out of Memphis, and they were interested right up to the last minute, and then they finally told me that they just had a certain number of rigs out doing wells, and they were booked up.
I think this is a company you're familiar with, though, and they have a good work record.
Yes.
Okay.
Nesbitt's has bid a well, and they were the low bidder at Nesbitt's well. So,
Okay.
but they are.
Any other questions?
Do you think we'll get better response with the other 2 items when we put that out for bid?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we'll get better response on the plant.
Okay.
There just aren't a lot of well diggers.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
Anything else? If not, is there a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion at the recommendation of Mr. Lauderdale to approve the lowest bid from Donald Smith Company for the Byhalia Getwell Road Water Plant Well.
Second.
So motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That
Nay.
motion passes. Yeah, we had an A down there. Item 19, would you present this one to us, Austin? Yes, sir.
We've received a request for a waiver of the food truck regulations for 288 Gwynn Road. Bingo Bonanza at the corner of Gwynn and Star Landing Road operates a charity event benefiting Appella Foster Care, and they've submitted their charitable status, and they'd like to have availability for food trucks at their events on the weekends. And so it's in front of you tonight for a request of the exemption to waive the conditional use requirement.
What are your thoughts or recommendations on that one?
They did provide a charitable status, and we do have a representative here tonight if you got any questions about the specifics of the truck. but it does appear to be a legitimate charitable organization.
Any questions from the board?
Austin, this is our first time kind of giving a waiver on the ordinance, is that correct?
We've done it for a fair and some of the events around the square, but for strict charitable organization, this would be the first.
Is this a recurring event, or is this just a one-time?
I'll defer to the applicant. I believe it's going to be recurring, but if you'd like to put a time
Would you like to
limit
come
on
up
it.
and speak? Yes.
I'm Tammy Pierce with Appella. I'm the Associate Vice President of Development there. Bingo is it's a bingo hall, charitable gaming. We are licensed by the state of Mississippi. Appella has been in Hernando since 2010, and we are a foster care agency, and we provide over 500,000 hours of service to special needs foster children in the state of Mississippi each year. With that, our facility has no concession, no anything for the customers. Now, on the weekends, on Saturday, and that's what I was thinking, just start one Saturday a month and see how it went with just one food truck. I don't want a whole mess of people out there. It would be a convenience for the customers that come that we have a double session on Saturdays. So we have one at 1 and one at 5 o'clock so they could have lunch and dinner and not have to leave because there is not any food places near that area unless you go to the convenience store on the corner. So it was just an idea to try to get them a convenience for them to draw in more people. Since COVID, our numbers have been down considerably, which is across the state, but we are one of the largest, most profitable halls in the state of Mississippi.
Y'all have any other questions?
And you said your anticipation is about once a month?
I'd like to start once a month just to see. I don't want to overwhelm and have one food truck out there because we do have about 100, 150 people a day. And I don't want to spread it between multiple. That's not fair to the food truck vendor, right? So I'd like to have just one once a month and see how it goes. I don't want to try it every weekend right now, thinking about that because I don't want to overwhelm a food truck vendor. But if it does do good, maybe pick up twice a month on a Saturday and see how that goes. But initially, just once a month on a Saturday.
I'm gonna ask the attorney a question here and to make sure that my thoughts is within the boundary of being legal. She basically requesting 12 times a year. And we could approve a waiver for 1 year, not to exceed 15 times a year. And then after that year, if she wants multiple times, she'll have to come back. Does that make sense? I mean,
You can.
instead of just arbitrarily saying I'm gonna start twice a month in July. But if we approve a waiver for 12 months, not to exceed 15 times in that 12-month period. So if she used 4 times in February or March or whatever, then she ain't got but 11 left. When you think that's simplified, then I think that'll be more conducive for your planning purposes. And it's better for us to manage it too.
Yeah, just one Saturday a month.
We still get the sales tax revenue from the purchase of the food truck?
So it will still be permitted through Austin's department, and they will
Mm-hmm.
check the sales tax number to make sure that it's a Hernando sales tax application.
All she's asking for is a waiver on the permitting fees, is that what I understand?
The conditional use requirement, yes.
That's what I'm saying. That way we'll have, through them coming through the office, we'll have a better place to manage it and with the numbers. Somebody have anything like to make a motion now?
Any other discussion? We'll entertain a motion, Alderman Miller.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant the waiver of the conditional use and to not to exceed 15 times in 12 months, period. They must return after the 12 months to request another conditional use.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Thank you.
opposed, no. That motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item 20 is the request to reduce the letter of credit for Compel Church. Joe, did you want to speak to that?
Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from this.
Yes, sir. We will let the record reflect that Alderman Piper is leaving the room and will not be here for any of the discussion on this item.
Okay, it's pretty well standard, reducing the construction bond down to a maintenance bond, one-year maintenance bond on the lane that you see out there on McInville Road, and then a few minor things that need to be addressed sometime within a year on that. So that's kind of what we've come up with after watching their work and looking at their work they've done.
So are you asking us to approve everything that's listed on this sheet here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Have they fixed I mean, I know they're past construction, but, you know, the mud was draining into the pond across the street. Has that been cleared up?
I have not heard of an issue like that lately. I think
Okay.
they've done what they're supposed to do as far as that detention area and silt basin.
Okay.
But they will still have to, maintain that and keep everything in order, keep everything in place there. So that's a permanent structure that they've got.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request to reduce the letter of credit for compelled church.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. Item 21 is a planning item. Austin, would you like to come up and start on the planning items, please?
Yes, sir. The first tonight is PL 1785, and it's the Crestview R15 rezoning. I'll give a brief history of how we got here tonight, and the request is to send it back to the Planning Commission because of the substantial change. The original application was submitted in July of 2023 and subsequently denied of the straight R15 zoning. The applicants came back in February of 2024 with a revised plan to help accommodate some of the concerns that they heard from their first hearing. So with that plan, they presented a preliminary plat, which was also subsequently denied. So they've asked for a table until tonight's meeting, and in the meantime, between that February meeting and tonight, they've actually generated another plan that's substantially different than the plan seen by the Planning Commission at the last meeting. And the efforts to communicate to some of the neighbors is ongoing. And so it's our recommendation that we send this application back to the Planning Commission, be remanded back to the Planning Commission for a reconsideration involving a new plan that they presented. And the applicant's here tonight to kind of give any explanation that I didn't give, but I did include his email that showed the ongoing efforts of the new plan and a plat of what's proposed now. And as you can see, it is substantially different with what the Planning Commission saw. And so the request tonight would be to remand it back to the May 14th Planning Commission meeting, which would put it back in front of the Board of Aldermen on the 21st of May.
Let me ask you a question. With this being remanded back, and I guess it's also a question for Mr. Pittman also, because we want to make sure that the citizens are aware of this next meeting with the Planning Commission, that any costs associated with this be borne by the developer, since it's his request. That means contacting the citizen with mail outs, and everything, that whatever expense that you incur in your office, that they be liable for that expense. Can we do that? Because it's at his request that he requesting this, and it should not be an expense to the city to notify the citizen about the meeting. That way it shouldn't, that way they would have no, they couldn't say that they wasn't properly notified. We want to make sure, ensure that they properly notified of this remand back. I'm asking for clarity, so you.
It has to be referred back to the Planning Commission also.
The request is to remand it back because of the significant change. There is language in the ordinance that says that there's not technically, that's not required to re-advertise it and resend letters, even though it's been a common courtesy to do.
That was my, I know what the regulation said. That was the reason for my statement. Because we know we're not legally required, but I feel obligated that the citizens be aware.
Yeah. So what I think you're
I
saying is,
understand the language.
as part of your, if you were to make the motion to remand it back, as part of your motion would be that the citizens get
Be
re-notified.
notified and all.
At the expense of the developer.
Being borne by the developer.
Yeah. And the main reason for sending it back is, it's a totally different plan. You know, so the planning commission denied and sent something to us that was totally different than what they're proposing now. So we felt like, since it's a totally different plan, not just a minor tweak, it needed to go back to the planning commission and start back over. And the developer concurred with that.
Yeah, well, I won't hear from the developer.
Corey Brady, 9967 Bentwood Creek Cove, Collierville, Tennessee. I'm representing the developers in this application. Alderman Miller, we would agree to do that. What I would ask to do is work with Austin to generate the official list, and then we'll work with Austin to get those mailings out. I will also point out that we do have a sign posted in accordance with the policy, and those dates will be changed as well. And we are actively working with representatives from.
And that's what, we want clear transparency. That's
Absolutely,
all.
we understand. Happy to.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion? Oh,
So
go ahead,
just-
Alderman Piper.
Yeah. So I know that we've had rezonings or things come through the planning department and changes made after the planning commission denies it, and it hasn't been remanded back to them in the past. And I know that there's significant changes to this. Well, like, how do you define significant? I guess it's just really, and I say that from a standpoint of, like, these are the folks in my ward, and this has been something that's been brought up and rehashed time and again. I know they're all starting to get, I don't know, starting to get, they don't want to, continue to come back up here every 2 weeks or every month to have the same discussion again and again.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's something where I think we have to really start looking at, I guess, in our process of somebody comes to the planning commission, they're certainly allowed to amend what their plan is, but at what point are we going to say, okay, well, this is significant enough to go back to the planning commission, but this one isn't? Like, how does, you know what I mean? Because sometimes we've had buildings completely change, but those weren't significant enough, so we had to vote on it that night and vote in opposition to the planning commission and look like we're not backing them up. But on this one, well, the changes are significant enough, so let them have a say this time. It's just not, I just don't think our process is ironed out very well.
Austin, could you speak to that?
Sure, yes, sir. So I guess fundamentally, the request is generated from the applicant to go back to the planning commission.
So the applicant came up with that request on his own, because in his email, it said the mayor and the board may want to send this back to the planning commission in his email. It sounds like it was generated from, the idea may have been generated from a meeting that was had here.
It may be clear, because I think there's maybe something I wasn't privy to.
Yeah.
Alderman Piper, thank you. It's the board's discretion. We offered to go back to the planning commission because there were items on the planning commission that were specifically requested of us that we've addressed with this revised plan, or that directly related to the change in the plan. So when I sent that email out, my intent was to say, we will go back to the planning commission out of respect to the neighbors of the planning commission, the mayor and board meeting, whomever it may be, but ultimately it's this body's discretion. That's what it was. And if you'd like a real quick overview, not a presentation, but a bullet point list of the amount of change that we felt warranted in our respect, I'm happy to provide it.
Sure. I'm okay with that.
Anything else? If not, is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that this be remanded back to the planning commission and that the developer bear all costs associated with the mail out to inform the residents, along with signage being changed also.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Thank you very much.
So Austin, for the, before everybody leaves that's here for that item, when do you anticipate it will come back before the planning commission?
May 14th would be the
It's in there.
Okay. All right, so May 14th would be the date for the planning commission. Next item is item 22, 460 Byhalia Road.
This is PL 1800. The request is rezone 6.5 acres from R6 medium-density residential to O office district. The subject property is east of I-55, north of Byhalia, in Section 7, Township 3, Range 7. The applicant's Dr. Seymour. As I mentioned, this is a request to go from R6 medium-density residential to O, and this is a straight zoning request, so there is no preliminary plan submitted. It's just straight zoning. So I did include the permitted uses in the office district that are allowable by right, as well as the conditional uses on the plan. The future land use map and the general development plan designates this property as activity medical, and there's a description in your staff report of that subset. And so with that being said, this would conform to the comprehensive plan. With this being a zoning application, the three criteria for approval or denial are how this proposed amendment conforms to the general development plan, why the existing zoning district classification of the properties in question is inappropriate or improper, and what changes in the area, economic, physical, and social, have occurred that were not anticipated by the general development plan, have substantially altered the basic character of the neighborhood. The applicant did provide responses to those in his application in the proposal that I've got in your staff report. The next process, if approved tonight, would be a preliminary plat, and all development would be subject to the city's design regulations. And so this is a straight zoning, so you don't see those physically in the staff report tied to the application, because the request tonight is just for the zoning. I did include proposed motions to approve, deny, or table in your staff report. And the applicant's available, and I'm available as well if you have any questions.
So this is like half of the property that they have there?
Roughly, yes, sir.
Yeah. I apologize for interrupting you last item.
You're okay, no worries. This was heard by the Planning Commission at the last meeting and recommended for approval.
Any questions from the board? Is there anyone here to speak on the item? Hearing none, is there any more discussion or a motion from the board?
Motion to recommend approval of a rezoning request by Joe Lauderdale, representing the owner of the property, 6.5 acres of 3 parcels of land from R6 residential to O office district. The subject property is located east of I-55, north side of Byhalia Road, in Section 7, Township 3, Range 7, RSS properties, based upon the following findings, 1 through 3.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 23, Austin. This is the PL 1802 Joy Health PUD amendment.
Yes, sir. PL 1802, the request is to amend the existing Joy Health PUD. This was previously in front of you on an application from Toyota for the adjacent parcel. And so the other half of the original Joy Health PUD has recently been approved for the auto body shop for Toyota. This is the remaining portion, the remaining acreage there. This subject property is located on the north side of Holly Springs Road, east of McInville, and Susan Stout's here tonight representing the application. The request was originally approved in 2007 for mixed-use development, including senior living and some retail frontages along Holly Springs Road. As I mentioned, this is immediately adjacent to the Hernando Fire Station and Lee Summit subdivision. The other half of the property is currently bonded by the approval regulations from Toyota for their proposal. This is for an indoor soccer facility on the remainder. The future land use map for the city's general development plan identifies the property as master plan residential medium density. There is some accommodations for commercial, as in your staff report says. The full description's in there, but when commercial is considered, this category is to provide for modern, attractive, personal and professional commercial facilities with access needs that demand location along major arterial roadways. The approval denial criteria are the same as the previous application, and it was heard by the Planning Commission and recommended for approval. One of the major considerations at that meeting was the site's parking. And so with this being a PUD, the bulk regulations are dictated by the text. And so the building height, the parking counts, the applicant can provide calculations that differ than are typical. And in this case, I'll explain in just a second exactly what they've provided. But the way our parking regulations work, the uses are broken down into subsets, and each of those subsets have a calculation. So for a public assembly, it's 1 for every 4 seats. For a school or auditorium, it's 2 parking spaces per classroom plus 1 for every additional 10 seats in an auditorium space. For a commercial recreation facility, it would be 1 for every 100 square feet. And for a semi-public or private club or lodge, it's 1 for every 300 square feet. So we didn't have an exact calculation of how to plug this in to get the required number of spaces. And so if we did a count of 1 to 400, that would have generated 400 parking spaces. A count of 1 to 300 to be 133. And so the way they based their parking calculations were the expected number of occupants of the building. And so the applicant will speak to it a little bit more here in a second, but the practices are expected to generate a maximum of 60 players with the associated parents, and 114 parking spaces are provided for. A little bit about the site plan. It's heavily buffered on the northern and eastern boundaries to help buffer some of the facility from the adjacent neighborhood. The parking is located on the western portion of the site. The building materials are going to be masonry veneer, and so it'd be a cinder block building with a brick exterior, basically. The frontage of Holly Springs Road would be required to be improved, lane and a half, curb and gutter, and sidewalk for the frontage of what they would be purchasing. And the circulation around the building does include a fire lane on that eastern side, so you would be able to drive around the building to satisfy some of the fire code requirements. Another point of reference from our planning commission meeting was the design regulations concerning a building of this size. And so the scale of the building is a bit irrelevant for being commercially zoned. It would still be required to be a fully parapet building around the entire building. The lighting requirements would be 90 degree. And so I'll let the applicant talk a little bit about that here in a second as well. As I mentioned, I did provide a proposed motion to approve, deny, and table in your staff report, and the full proposals in your staff report, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Austin before the applicant comes up?
I have a question. What are our requirements normally for the number of entrances or exits, whatever, when you have a building this size or parking lot that size? Is it normally just 1?
It can be 1. The main thing for the fire department would be access around the building. And so the fire lane was provided so that the access is around 360 from the building, but the 1 would be subject to all fire code requirements.
And normally we try to reduce the curb cuts anyway, correct?
On commercial,
Yeah.
especially when they're that close
Yeah,
together.
we try to reduce the curb cuts so we wouldn't have as much, less chance of accidents and everything too.
Austin, you know where principal is on the development of their piece of this? How far out are they?
I haven't heard anything.
So
On
it
the
could be-
next door?
Yeah, so it could be a minute, potentially.
As far as I know, I haven't heard anything from it at all.
Okay.
They had
And,
said like a year to a year plus. It could be 18 months out, just depends on when they're running out of space over there.
And then when was this property obviously was residential at one point?
In 2007 is when they applied for the original PUD for the medical type of office.
Uh-huh.
And from what I understand, the certificate of need was not granted, which kind of killed the project.
That's correct.
It was residential before.
The 2007 is when it was rezoned to PUD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But it was residential all those years that
Right.
the Lees owned all that property.
Okay.
That was their house.
That was their house.
Got it. All right.
Any other questions before the applicant speaks? Ms. Stout, would you like to come forward?
Good evening. I'm Susan Stout of 6655 Autumn Oaks Drive, Olive Branch, Mississippi, 38654. Magnolia Sportsplex was born out of necessity. Soccer is exceptionally popular in our community, as you know, and often our weather does not allow our children to have any safe place to practice. There's a single indoor field in DeSoto County at this time, and its availability is sparse, to say the least. The proposed building would let up to 3 teams practice at once. There will be 2 large fields and 1 small field inside, and a maximum, as Austin said, a maximum of 60 players would be in the building at once, as well as their 3 or so coaches, plus parents. Our 114 parking spaces exceed our needs. The building itself will be 40,000 square feet with a sprinkler system. There will be 5 exit doors from the playing area. It's planned to be built of 4-inch brick and block on the exterior and 12-inch block on the interior, so that's 16 inches of reinforced masonry. As you can see, the exterior will feature white brick with black accent bricks in a cascading pattern. Such reinforced concrete masonry lends itself to Magnolia Sportsplex possibly being a community safe room. We have consulted both the 2020 ICC and the FEMA Peace 361 documents, and if approved, we would obviously work closely with a local qualified structural engineer to ensure that all requirements are met. It makes sense to put such a kid-safe environment in proximity to Colonial Hills Church, Fire Station Number 3, the Lee Summit Park, and the Lee Summit neighborhood. A previous PUD approval was for an assisted living facility, and this building will have parking and drop-off areas with an equal amount of disturbance to the surrounding areas. It will be open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. only by appointment. There is a 35-foot landscape buffer to the right of the building, as you can see, to create a buffer from it and the Lee Summit neighborhood. It will be filled with trees and shrubs to stifle all noise that may be created during drop-off and pickup times of the children. Next to it is a fire lane and a sidewalk, so in total, there will be 53 feet from the building to the Lee Summit property lines. There will also be a good amount of landscaping to the north of the building to separate it from the adjacent Colonial Hills Church property. The building will have 90-degree turn-down light fixtures per the local jurisdiction's rules to adequately light the sidewalks and the parking area. And also per the local rules, this illumination will not spill out onto Holly Springs Road or the adjacent property lines. But the bottom line is this: AJM Group, LLC, seeks to give children a safe venue in which to practice. It's not a venture to make money, such as a retail center or the like. It's for the betterment of our children and our community, with no flashing lights, no outdoor fields. It's simply an indoor practice facility. We feel that it will add value to our community in the way of bettering our city and keeping our children safe. It will add more tax dollars to our city, as well as revenue generated by everyone who comes down to Hernando to use this facility. And at the end of the day, Magnolia Sportsplex will be an asset to both Hernando and DeSoto County as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stout. Do y'all have any questions for her? Concerns?
Just from a side note, could you tell me about the support that you also received from the Hernando soccer team?
Well, we do have some supporters here, if that's what.
Now, what were their thoughts on this facility?
Well, I believe their thoughts are going to be exceptionally positive, and I think you'll get to hear them in just a moment. Because I think this will be an asset to all of the local soccer programs.
But it's just practice only?
Yes,
There's
ma'am.
no tournaments?
No, none. That's not an intended use at this time. Just inside practice. Kids will be dropped off and picked up. And as we said, there will be bleachers on the inside for 2 parents per child, so only seating for 120 on the inside for 60 kids.
When you say intended use at this time, you could change it.
I suppose anything could happen in the future, but at this time, I'm confident that this is for indoor practice only, per my client.
It's just the area is very busy, and that's cramming that building right into the subdivision right there, and there's a house right next to it.
Well, there are approximately 70 houses there in Lee's Summit, I know, and I'm just thinking if, all of those people can be coming and going equally as much, if not more, than all of the cars coming and going to this facility. So we do recognize that.
Yeah, I live off of Holly Springs, and so I travel that way all the time, and it's very congested as it is, 2-lane. And I would want, more than 35 feet next to my house, a big, huge brick soccer facility.
Well, the good news, ma'am, is it would be 53, if you lived right there, it would be 53 feet from your back property line. And due to the construction of the building being the concrete block and brick, it will be virtually soundproof on the inside. So it would be a big building right in your backyard, but it would be as quiet, if not more quiet, than the previous assisted living facility that was suggested.
So there's, you said there's 3 fields, and so only one team per
Well,
field
there
at
could
a
be
time?
3 teams. So yes, ma'am, 2 large fields, like full-size fields or larger fields, and 1 half-size, smaller field. So there could be 3 teams practicing at one time, as well as their coaches.
I'm saying 1 team per field?
Yes.
Not 2 teams per field? There won't be scrimmages and that sort of thing?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's 10 on 10, so 20 kids, so 10 on 10. So I suppose you could say there could be about 5 teams there, if you look at it that way.
Okay, so that would raise the number of kids and parents.
Well, there would still
and-
be 60 kids, though, period, because we'd have 20, 20, and 20 on the fields, if I understand soccer correctly. So there would be no more than 60 kids in there at one time.
When that property was, when Mr. and Mrs. Lee lived there, well, actually, they owned the property still, they would let soccer teams practice on that field. It was a nightmare. Kids were running across the street. People were parking all along Holly Springs. It was a nightmare.
I bet it was.
And so, I just don't think there's ample space for all of that in that one location. I think it's just going to pose a safety issue on Holly Springs.
Well, respectfully, I disagree, simply based on the parking that we have and, the safety that this building will provide our children, so there won't be any noise. There shouldn't be kids running across the street because there's really nowhere for them to go. And balls won't be going everywhere because it will all be contained indoors.
I know you mentioned you said it was AJM group? Is
Yes.
that- What can you tell me about them, I guess, just briefly?
Sure. I can tell you that AJM Group, at least one of the founding members, is heavily into the soccer world in this community and the surrounding area, and certainly has the experience to pull this off.
Yeah. I Googled it and didn't see there's several different ones, and some of them are venture capital related and whatever, so I just didn't know where exactly.
No, sir, it's
This was-
local individuals.
Okay.
If y'all want to take a pause on the questions, we could, it seems like there's people here to speak on the topic. It might be a good time for that. So is there anyone here that would like to speak on this topic?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Please come up.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Kelly. I live at 1320 Holly Springs, literally the 3rd house from this projected location. If anybody's driven down Holly Springs trying to get out of your driveway in the mornings, in the evening, it is virtually a nightmare. Holly Springs is extremely busy. Actually, my wife and kids were rear-ended by a gentleman doing 50 miles an hour down Holly Springs, and really bad shape. So this, it's a great facility, looks great, but I don't think this is the right spot for this project. I know if I lived in the house right next door, I wouldn't want to look out my bedroom window and look at a white wall. That's not why I would have purchased that house. It's a great area. Lee Summit's a great area. If anybody has kids, such as myself, you know that they're going to be congregating outside the building. It's not going to be all contained inside the building. They're going to be unloaded in the parking lot. Balls are going to get let loose. They're going to bring their balls. They're going to be kicking balls outside. They're going to be talking outside, congregating outside, even though, everything's going to be on the inside, allegedly. I just think it's too big of a structure for this particular location. This kind of needs to be in an area that's off the beaten path, in my recommendation. But I'm not against a facility like this in Hernando. I think it would be great, but just not in this particular location. And that's basically all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone? Yes, sir.
How are y'all? I'm Luke.
Good.
I'm Colonial Hills pastor here in Hernando, so we'd be neighbors. So again, we have no objection at this point. I think there's a potential for partnership with our church. I would like to eyeball whoever AJM is, whoever those people are. That's before I say that we would actually partner with them. But being a neighbor, being that we're both, I think, for the community wanting to bless and benefit those that are around us, I think we have no objections. And I would love to see if there is a possible partnership with our church for whatever purpose, whatever connection we might have. So anyway, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you,
Pastor.
That was a question I had for the applicant, if they would be amenable to some kind of back exit to the Colonial Hills property or something like that, which, I mean, obviously I would have to talk about all that, but you get what I'm saying? Like if you had a way to connect to y'all's parking lot to have an extra way to get in and out.
I do not know their plans. Again, I think we as a church may be open to that if it actually provides safety and it eases things in terms of traffic flow for the community. That may be something that we would consider. Again, it's hard to just know who you're agreeing with when you say like an LLC. I want to eyeball somebody first.
Right.
And if so, though, that may be an option for our church. We're open to that, to considering that.
Okay. Very generous. Thank you.
I'm Brian Couch, 1686 Notting Hill Drive. I was going to speak on that, and I'm not putting words in Luke's mouth, but I know when I had that property for sale for Bill Lee, I was approached by some members of the church wanting access through there. They wanted him to grant an easement because it would help them, so obviously it could be beneficial for both parties because I was approached about that, and obviously Bill was not open to that at the time because he didn't want to hinder the property sale. So that was there. As far as the facility, I mean, we were just here a few weeks ago where y'all were talking about how great our soccer program has become. This would do nothing but benefit going forward, that aspect of it. We lost so many high school practices, the middle school lost so many practices because of the time of year we play. If we could go to that facility, it's just helping that program grow. Back when Gary Higdon and Sam Lauderdale were still on this board, I was saying scrap baseball, focus on soccer. We're getting beat everywhere in the baseball world. And y'all know how hard it's been to get baseball here. It's great that a private group is willing to do this because y'all know how bad we've struggled to get baseball fields. That's my 2 cents on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. Anyone else like to speak?
I'm Ethan McClure, also a Hernando resident, live out kind of past Holly Springs as well. Long-time DeSoto County resident, soccer coach. I just wanted to say how positive this would be for the kids of our community. Like Brian was saying, as a fellow soccer coach, I can't tell you how hard it is in the winter times to coordinate just one team, let alone 3 or 4 if you're coaching club teams and things like that. I also teach. I think this would just be a huge benefit for the youth of our county and city to get them out of their homes in the wintertime, get them off the electronics. Soccer has grown exponentially in DeSoto County since I was little here. It's the fastest growing sport in our county and in our country too. I think it would just be a great asset to the youth of our county. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I want to make a comment real quick.
Go ahead while he's
before
coming
they
up.
say something. I don't believe anybody's against this facility. No one's against growing the soccer program and having an indoor facility. It's the location. That's it. It's the location. This has nothing to do with not wanting a soccer complex in Hernando. Yes, we need it, but this location is, and I mean, especially if you're partnering with Colonial there and opening up that drive, that's even going to put more traffic through to Holly Springs for people cutting through there. So, I mean,
That would actually take down all the traffic, because it would go out the other way too.
but your churchgoers are going to be cutting through there too, and that's going to pour more traffic onto Holly Springs on Sunday churches, on Sunday church day. And, I mean, we know that Monteith has a lot of traffic during church already, so that would even be an extra overflow onto Holly Springs. Holly Springs is not, it just can't equip. I just think it's a safety hazard. I think the soccer facility's nice looking. I have no issues with the soccer facility. I just think it's crammed in on that lot. Now, if it had the entire lot and Toyota hadn't already proposed something to the left of it, closest to the fire station, I think it'd be great. It would have ample room for parking, and it'd have ample room for maybe 2 entrances, so it's not all segregated into one section. But, I mean, I don't believe anybody's against it. It's just the location is just not ideal.
Someone about to come up and speak a minute ago. Yes, sir, please come.
I'm Mark Hogan. I live in Hernando. I'm actually the soccer coach at the high school. I'm just going on what they said, teach at the high school, work at the high school. This would, and I know you said that this would benefit my guys completely because we lost multiple practices on our run to the state championship because of weather. So I'm all for that, and that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Make a motion that once you get all your comments, Mayor.
Are there any other comments for or against this application? Okay. Yeah.
Amy Robinson of Hernando, and I just got a couple questions. What about the soccer facility over off of Robertson? Is there a place for this building over there so they could be practicing in the indoor facility and then playing on the outdoor fields? That way it's a one-location place. Or I know that Doug at Memphis Street has approached us to put a boxing gym in over there, so I know that he has room over there. Is there not a place inside of there that you could expand to? Because I agree, I know this place because I own a business at this corner as well, and it's very cumbersome to get in and out. I see wrecks there all the time. Adding this many people in that place is going to be very cumbersome, and just for the flow, because isn't that where we're putting in a roundabout currently?
Yes.
Okay, so we're already in a
Hopefully designed to slow down
position.
that traffic.
Right, we're already in a position to deflect the traffic there. That's why we're putting in a turn, the roundabout there. So, I mean, I agree on both sides, but there's got to be a way to make this, because I know soccer has become literally #1 comparative to baseball. I mean, it's way up there. And so, I mean, an indoor facility, is there not room where the outdoor facilities are?
I don't know how we would put it on public property, and
It's
actually,
public and
most of those,
private.
yeah,
We
most
could
of those
build it and
fields
rent it
are.
back.
We ain't gonna build no building.
That could be an income
We
facility.
just barely able to maintain the field that we have.
Yeah, and we actually need all of those outdoor fields for game days, when we have.
Does anybody have any land that they could donate to the city? to
It'll be
build
out to somebody, you talk to somebody other than some real estate people
I
out
may
there.
find you some.
Thank you, Ms.
I'll
Robinson.
come, I got a motion, Mayor, when you finish.
Okay, please present your motion.
Any more comment?
Any other comments? Okay, Alderman.
Let me ask you one question also. Everything that was applied in the text here to us, they are bound by that upon approval, correct?
That's correct.
Because I heard the comments about leaving out in the morning but the hours of operation, what I understand, is from 9 to 9. So that should negate that leaving out in the morning time going to work, because that'll be part of the,
They'd be bound to those hours.
they're bound to that, so that should alleviate that concern. Heard concern about the parking lot between the church and this proposed building. That's something that'll be taken up private between those two property owners, that the city will have nothing to, no matter, no kind of way to deal with the approval or denial, in my opinion, because they're two separate property owners. Is that, if I'm legally correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure before I make my motion. I make a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen for the rezoning requested by Susan Stout, representing the owner of the property, for a zoning map amendment preliminary development plan approval, revision to the Joy Health PDU located on the north side of Holly Spring Road, east of McInville in section 17, Township 3, Range 3, based upon the following finding that's listed there in 1, 2, 3, and other attachment that's attached, the other attached documents.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
I want a roll call vote on this.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call vote?
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
Aye.
Alderman Wicker,
Aye.
Alderwoman Ross,
Nay.
Alderman Piper,
Aye.
Alderman Harris,
Aye.
Alderwoman Lynch.
No.
And the motion passes. We will move on to item number 24.
All right, the next application is PL 1803 Ironwood PUD. The request is for a rezoning and preliminary development of plan approval for a piece of property on the north side of Green Tea Road, west of McInville in section 31 and 32, Township 2, Range 7, presented by MST Development, who's the owner. The request for unites for a PUD designation for primarily commercial development. A little bit background on the property. The property was originally included within the right-of-way of I-269 and owned by MDOT. This was subsequently sold to the developer upon the completion of the interstate. The future land use map identifies this piece of property as activity retail, and the remainder of the property was not listed in the comprehensive plan because it was a part of that interstate right-of-way. The purpose of the activity retail designation is to provide auto-oriented commercial district activity for commercial and office development focused primarily on the needs and convenience of motorists without losing pedestrian access and connections. The applicant did provide responses to each of the 3 approval or denial criteria. And a little bit about the plan. As I mentioned, it is primarily a commercial development. There are proposed to be 3 hotel sites, 1 site for a convenience store, and 5 out parcel developments for a restaurant and or retail. The setbacks and bulk requirements are listed in your staff report, and similar to the last application, with this being a PUD, the height requirement, the setbacks are all kind of dictated in this by the applicant in the text, but the parking requirements were structured after our uses in the zoning ordinance, and so the parking count that you see would be applicable for just a regular development. The permitted uses and conditional uses were structured around the C2 commercial district, and those are listed in your staff report. And at the Planning Commission meeting, part of their motion was a recommendation of approval contingent on the elimination of the uses 23 through 25, which were all the cannabis-related uses, and to also provide for use 33, which is mobile food park, to be a conditional use. So that was their recommendation coming to y'all regarding the uses. The minimum yard requirements, the height requirements are listed in that chart in your staff report. The 65 feet is the proposed height of the hotels. So that would be the governing document for the design review for those hotels. The design requirements in the staff report and in the applicant's proposal either meet or exceed our design regulations. And so our base approval document would be our design regs, but they did go above and beyond in some of the masonry requirements and some of the facade requirements in their design regs that they proposed. They propose phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 as shown on page 13 on the staff report. But primarily, the development is centered to be east of Old Mackinvale Road to one, maximize the use of the thickest piece of property because it is an odd-shaped piece of property, and two, center some of the uses away from the residential development that's on the golf course. Another big discussion point of the planning commission was the traffic with the intersection that we have, and it was mentioned that MDOT's currently doing a traffic study at New Mackinvale and Green Tea, and the applicant has offered to provide a traffic impact statement and provide their improvements on Old Mackinvale Road as a result of what that statement says from a professional engineer. This was heard by the planning commission at the last meeting and recommended for approval in a vote 5-1 for approval. And the governing document, as Alderman Miller in our last application, the zoning is based on this governing document. So all the setbacks, the height requirements, the building designs, everything's in this text of what that piece of property would be zoned as. And so it's a bit of a deed restriction. The applicant's here tonight to answer any questions, and I'm available as well.
Does the board have any questions for Austin?
So if this is approved as it stands, they would not have to come back for a height variance.
That's correct, unless it's above that 65 feet.
Would the applicant like to speak?
What was that?
Go ahead, Alderman Miller.
Just bring me back in. What was that hike that we did on the other hotel out there that fell? Anyway, what was the hike that we ended up dealing with? Because we had something to deal with the building, and then also the frontage or something of the facade, whatever you call it.
For the parapet, yes, sir. So they
That's
asked
the
that
word.
same question.
You know what I'm talking about.
At the original request that came to you for the Marriott site on Creekside was a 65-foot request, and the approval was 55. Some of the other ones have been 57 and 52, and the parapet is the screening of the utilities on top of the building, the pretty part of the building to hide the utilities. The proposal in this document would be 65 would be the finished floor, so the parapet would be a bit taller than that, but
Okay.
the 65 would be the number.
65 number, okay, thank you.
And I think the ones out on Creekside, the approval was that lower number because they literally were right next door to houses.
That's correct.
They weren't up against an interstate.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to come up and speak, Mr. Cates?
Thanks for having us. I'm TJ Cates, 230 Highway 51, pretty close to where this development is. We've been working with planning, and they've done a great job. We've done a lot of tweaking. I was glad to see us strike a bunch of uses, because I think that's really important. Alderman Miller, you were talking about our Marriott that we got approved last year. There happened to be a spring up under it, and the developers, the investors didn't want to go and take that chance of getting a leaner. So we backed away, but what we did do is keep our flag, which is a Marriott flag and really hard to get. We are asking for a little bit more height this time. Our Scott is going to come in, our architect, and explain why, and it's got a lot to do with the entrance, the grand entrance of what we want to do. And we are going to phase this out. If you can look at it, like the yellow is going to be our C-store, and the blue could be like a restaurant, or we don't really have any of that attached yet. Scott's going to cover that. The very first orange T, that's going to be our first Marriott, and so we're going to stage it out from there and phase the property. So we're not going to jump right in and build 3 hotels right off the bat. The good thing about it, it's going to be a beautiful, and nobody uses the word beautiful, everybody uses the word luxurious, but this is going to be beautiful and luxurious. When you get off that exit and you see, and this is the new first impression that people are going to see when they come down 55 or they do 269, they're going to really look at Hernando like something incredible. Not that it's not already incredible, but it's going to be a really good destination. The reason we're talking to so many really big, nice restaurants is because if you follow Hernando happenings, which I kind of do, but I don't comment, everybody complains that the restaurants close so early and the kitchens do close early. What we're hoping to do with the restaurants that come in there is start feeding off of Olive Branch, Lewisburg. There's not a nice sit-down restaurant. So for the lodging, for Snowden, let's make some money off of South Haven instead of making money off of us. When they go play ball at Snowden, let's bring them to Hernando. What is it, $2 a night or 1% is what you get, hotel, motel? That's going to be, what, $100,000 a year if we get 3 hotels on that. So we're going to be an income producer with our retail, and it's a wonderful development. I like living down the street from it. It keeps us from going to Memphis so much, but it's also going to offer a nice, really good improvement to that little scrappy little piece of pie that MDOT left us. So we bought it, and we've come up with a really good plan. I've got any questions, I can answer any questions, as long as we're not too detailed, and that's when we get the college boys over here. They may have any questions for me or anything.
Could you address the amount of green space that's gonna be remaining left on there where you got the retention on it?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Scott answer that one. I guess I'll just do an
Maybe we'll bring
introduction.
Scott on up.
Let's bring Scott on up. Come on up, Scott.
I'm Scott Guidry, I'm an architect with Design Shop. And we're at 431 South Main Street, Memphis, Tennessee. We've worked with this developer on some other projects as well. Your question was about green space. It's 46% green, 54% paved or buildable, built on site, which is quite an advantage to this piece of property. Again, we need some retention area, and the sliver of the property to the west is really too small to build anything on, so that just became, the site sort of told us that's what it wanted to be, so we shoved all the buildings over to the other side.
Did that answer your question, Alderman Miller?
Y'all gonna start with phase 4 or phase 2? Which is gonna be the first hotel?
Phase 1, so it would be the C-store, and then the couple of little blue boxes at the top,
You're not gonna build a hotel at first?
and also one of the orange
Right there will be phase 1.
Oh, okay.
with the first drive to go in as well.
Phase 1 and phase 2B is what you have. We'll sit in front of me. That would be the first part.
Okay, I should have brought my notes with me, I didn't.
So the blue and pink buildings, I mean, it sort of looks like they're kind of like four-sided almost, like there's not really gonna be any sort of what you would call like a back look. They would have 4 like front facades almost?
That's correct. It's an architect's dream to not have a back of a building with all the utilities just
Is that-
stuck on the back. That's the idea.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And I will say, the number of sites that we have here for retail, it really just depends on what the market will allow us to do. The 2 buildings at the upper right-hand corner of the plan, we thought about those initially as because of the size of that piece of property, what it could allow. And from what I'm told, the developer does have an interested party that would just want 1 building on that site and have its own parking. Those deals aren't done. We're kind of looking for the approval of the plat before they can go into any real negotiations. So things can shift a bit.
What other questions do you have?
There's no curb cut off of, it's all green right there on the eastern border.
All on Green Tea, none on McInville. That's correct.
Okay.
How many gas pumps is that?
I can't remember, 12? Yeah, so 12 is what we have it planned for. We tucked it inside the property, so it's not, full.
Six islands, okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
12
right,
cars.
two.
And one thing that's really hard to note from this plan is there's actually a pink line that's parallel to Green Tea. And what's that width? Is it 55 feet, I think, is for overhead power lines that exist now, so we can't build under that anyway. So it does really push all the development towards the I-269, which is also a plus for the property, so we can have a nice green strip, low, underneath the power lines.
I know the board's been asking you some questions. Did you want to present anything that you wanted to say that you're not being questioned about?
I don't believe so, other than I would say we've worked, as I mentioned before, we've worked with this developer before, and we're really excited about creating, you've heard the term walkable spaces. This is sort of inherent to that because the hotels are there, so when people come stay at the hotels, that'll actually give them an opportunity to walk across to go eat at the multiple restaurants that are available. There's also, the pink building is a retail center It's a multi-bay retail center that you've seen in other places. But it's really all designed around the person, what's that human scale, human height. We did talk about height earlier, and that human scale is also important there. The reason why we're asking for a taller building, there's actually a couple of reasons. One is the taller we go, the smaller the footprint is. That allows us to kind of shrink the asphalt area, actually give more green space to the place as well. 6 stories or even 5 stories allows you to have taller floor-to-floor heights. The lobbies, if you've gone into some hotels in bigger cities, you'll see, you walk into a hotel and it feels like the ceiling is forever above you. And then there's others that maybe going into a Hampton Inn, it seems like it might be, roughly this height. So when we get to 5 and 6 stories, it requires a different type of structural system that it's called a plinth. So it's built of concrete or steel. So it's a much sturdier building rather than all 4 stories of stick built that you typically see built on the side of highways. We also think because this is along the interstate, it also lends itself to something taller so that it can be seen from further distance. And the fact that we've pushed it all towards the interstate helps with that as well. But when the developer came to us with this piece of property, I think we probably scratched our heads for a couple of days. Like, what do you want us to do with that thing? This is probably iteration 53. I lost count along the way, but we think this is a pretty smart plan how it ultimately laid out.
And I may have missed it at some point. What's the timeline for phase 1?
So they're looking at 18 months, 12 to 18 months to break ground. On the design side, I think it's probably going to take us a little longer than that to get through, but he's anxious. The development team is really anxious to get started on phase 1. They're owner-developers, so they'll operate the C-store and the hotel, and I'm not sure about the hotels. They may have land leases on those. But he's anxious to build his 2 pieces right away. Then the market will dictate if more hotel rooms, when they need to come on board.
One of the concerns I have is how, given that timeline, how we as a city will be able to address the intersection there. I know that everybody in here doesn't attend every single meeting, and I totally understand why. But we discussed just recently how dangerous that intersection is right there at McInville and Green Tea. We've had a number of accidents there, and we mentioned the traffic study earlier, but with the timeline you're given, it really puts the city on a clock to get that intersection dealt with.
And I'm with you, and while we're doing it, and with this development being done, that's gonna, I think, help us also with lanes and everything else in that area that they'll be responsible for doing.
So also, as part of this, they're going to add a full lane on the north side of Green Tea?
Yes, sir. So the subregs require a full lane or lane and a half.
That's, so I mean,
Lane and a half, okay.
It's gonna, start helping us, as we look at plans, we got to make sure that we include that in our plan in this 12 to 18 months, that it's gonna be wide and also, as we look at it long term. Still looking at the short term, like we've been talking about, short term solution, but at the same time, we'll be able to look at the long term solution if this is passed tonight, also.
This may be a good time to announce a conversation I had about 3 hours ago with Mitch Turner from MDOT. We've been talking to him about the warrant for some kind of a traffic control there at that intersection. And so they've done their study with our crash data. They have determined that it does need something. What they want it to have is a roundabout so it won't back traffic up onto the interstate. And so he also tried to see if they could.
I could guarantee I know they're gonna say a roundabout, man.
You knew they were. But the other piece of that is, he told me he is fairly certain that he has some money in the highway safety account, not to build it, but for MDOT to design it for us. So we're gonna start those conversations openly next week. So maybe we'll get the $300,000 of design work done with federal highway money through MDOT, and that'll get us started on upgrading that intersection. That doesn't give us the money to build it, but that does get us started on it.
And that all sounds very promising, and definitely appreciate the additional information on that. I just wonder if it wouldn't be prudent to have that a little further down the road before we approve a project of this magnitude. That would be that's just where I'm sitting. And then I wanted to ask I know we've talked with our fire chief before about buildings that are this height. I know that y'all can fight fires that are this significant. Clearly, y'all did an excellent job with the Hampton Inn fire, but this is not something that you're concerned with necessarily. 65 feet, you are good.
He's good for 80.
Well, when I heard the architect say that it's gonna be, steel and concrete, I knew the fire department would be happy. The building code allows for stick-built hotels, but it's not the thing that the firemen really like. So hearing that those are gonna be not stick-built hotels is
The ground floor.
yeah, okay, just the
Yeah,
ground floor, okay.
That's right.
Well, I may have spoke too soon.
Well, I just want to make sure we were clear.
It's just the ground floor, okay.
That's correct.
But I think by knowing that something like this is on the horizon to come in 12 to 18 months, will really help us, with our decision-making instead of pushing this down the line further. Because it's gonna be a minute before this is built and even, somebody take ownership, the invest, the owner is investing in this, but to get other people to come in and occupy those buildings in that spot, it's gonna be a minute.
And the owner, he's gonna actually own the hotels and the convenience store, right?
That's correct.
I'm talking about the rest of the property though, and so if we kick it down the road, man, we might be, I'm online, so I ain't gonna say what I'm thinking, so anyway.
Well, every structure that we have in this development, obviously, we come back to the planning commission and to the board, so that's a whole process. And, I think, again, as architects, the best relationship that can happen between a development and a developer and a city is a true partnership. Again, at the risk of speaking for Sam, but I've known Sam a while, I know he's definitely a team player, and he would be willing to listen to whatever you guys have to say.
I do want to remind, and maybe I'm going to preach for a minute like Andrew does. All those years ago, when the city of Hernando annexed I-69 and I-269, the whole idea was to annex just those exits. And the reason to annex the exits is because things like this come to those exits, they'll be paying 15% property tax, they'll be generating sales taxes, and that's the nodes where we can put those things that generate those tax revenues and the services that a lot of our citizens want. There'll be some restaurants that show up there that have been asking for, and it helps us keep our property tax rates where they are by getting these other things that pay at a higher rate. And that was the whole idea for those annexations all those years ago, and this seems to, in my mind, fit the bill.
I feel like there should be an amen to that.
Sunday morning, man, you say amen, man, I'm about to put my hat out.
So the planning commission recommended striking some uses and a conditional use. So if we wanted to go along with that, we would need to include that in our motion as well. I personally would also like to strike vehicle wash, number 21.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else has thought about that, but in that visible of a location, those, I don't know.
I don't think there'd be an issue with that. The way we wrote this, the uses was using the C2 guidelines, and then we reduced that by half. And this is the plan that we'd like to do. Restaurants, retail, and hotels, and a C-store. So we're open to any comments on uses.
Okay.
So you're saying uses 21 through 25?
Through 25, and then they also recommended that
33?
33 be a conditional use.
So strike 21 through 25?
Yes.
And then,
What's the distance for like schools, since the school's down there on McInville? Austin? What's the distance for cannabis?
Have y'all thought about?
What about 19? Can we strike it?
Yeah, the radio and TV towers, I'm just thinking it would sure mess up y'all's, the look of your development to have a big tower on it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that would be fine.
As far as Austin, number 13, what all would that consist of?
Well, the public, that's gonna be,
VFW or a private club of any type. It can be expanded to be kind of confusing, so it's a little bit of gray area.
Could we strike it as well?
I mean,
I wanted to get to 13 to read it.
you wanna make sure they go to the club or on the golf course, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, man. You gotta support the
I was just asking,
So what I've heard from everybody here so far, if we put them all together, is to strike number 13, number 19, number 21 through 25, and make 33 a conditional. That's what I've heard so far.
That's what I heard too.
Wasn't 32, didn't y'all strike that one? No?
Oh, yeah, 32 and 19 seem to be the same. They're
They-
both radio and television towers.
They look like they're worded,
They're identical.
They are.
yeah.
The only thing different, that, it lends itself, how many of y'all got these things here?
Everybody.
And you always talk about you want them closer to the interstate somewhere. I mean, you know, so we got to be careful that we don't, at some point in time, that some of these, that you can't have a tower there for cell phone towers. Somewhere there, you got all that green space down there that conducive to something like that. I ain't saying that that'll happen, but, you know, but something like that, it lends itself to something like that really won't be an eyesore. So, if we take out all these cell phone, tower radio, and then put, I don't know what verbiage would we use, Austin, for cell phone towers, to make sure that that'd be allowable use.
The way we do it in the zoning ordinance is that number 19.
Right, that's what I'm talking about, that's what I'm saying, so if we knock that out, I mean, it's,
19 and 32 are the same.
Well, maybe it could be written so where it was a camouflaged cell phone tower. Maybe it's on top of this tall building.
Did you ever go to, and look at
behind the
that,
parapet.
you ever look at that calendar, you go to Jackson, you see that one that they
The
got?
Washington Monument.
That thing, man, it look worse than they just left it alone. I mean, I don't have no problem with eliminating those, and I understand what Austin is telling us. But, if we could include in there somewhere cell towers as a use.
This is wireless communication.
Yeah, but they want to knock, y'all want to knock 19 out, though, that's what my point is. Could we, okay, let me make it even better, make it, on 19 then. Could we eliminate everything and leave in wireless communication facility? Would that work for cell phone towers, Austin, I'm asking you as a planner?
Yes, sir, these uses are in the PUD, you can dictate what use.
No, I'm talking about, would that work for cell phone towers, if we just left that part in?
So if you strike the words radio and TV from uses 19 and 32, and leave the remainder.
Yes, wireless communication facilities, and the reason they're in there twice, now that I'm reading it, is one is less than 35 feet and one is more. The reason the second one is in there is that more than 35 is usually a conditional use. If it's less than 35, it's usually allowable by right. I think that's why it's in there twice.
You're right.
But, yes, if it's wireless communication facility, that would be a cell phone tower.
Yeah. And then we could say, condition of use for anything above that height, whatever height we say. I mean,
Can we say that it is,
what was that hike again? 35?
35 is the number in question. They both got them as permitted uses. Typically, if it's more than 35, that's what triggers a conditional use.
So we could add, like where we got a conditional use at 33. We can also have a conditional use for a wireless communication facility over 35 feet.
32 and 33 moved to conditional.
how about we just conditional use for the cell phone tower at all?
Well, you know, that's, I mean, every time somebody come in, they have to come in for a hearing. That's, I mean, that's kind of.
This is your C2 language, just,
Yeah,
I mean.
that's what I'm saying. We already, the other rest of the C2 don't have to come in for anything 35 and below. So if they're gonna be 35 feet and below, and you ain't gonna have, the truth be told, you ain't gonna have too many that gonna come in for no 35 feet. They're gonna be higher and
Most likely.
Yeah, probably.
they're gonna fall in their conditional use because they
That's
want to be
true.
able to get that tower up there and be able to have, the rent the space out to somebody else. So I don't think you're gonna see too many that coming in 35 and below.
That's a good point.
It's a being common sense.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Say amen then.
Make a motion.
But we're trying to get all our,
And before we get too much further, is there anyone else here that wants to speak on this item?
we just,
Just wanted to be certain.
We had a neighborhood meeting, that helps. So we invited everybody way outside the 500-foot requirement.
Okay. It's always a good thing to do.
Austin, like the mayor said now, Austin, make your notes now too now, so we make sure I miss our note. If the mayor said, one alderman already said he don't want no club, and that's 13. And we're gonna eliminate all other language in 19, but leave in wireless communication facility. Gonna eliminate 21 through 25. And 32, we're gonna eliminate everything except wireless communication facility and make that a conditional use in 32. Above the 35 feet. And then make 33 conditional use. We all agree, I mean, is that what was spoken?
That's what I've got listed.
Hey, Mayor, can I make a comment, please?
Absolutely, Alderman Harris.
I'm just thinking about both 19 and 32, and when I think about this development and the locations where you see these types of towers, communications towers, they're normally not located on a facility that's developed like this one will be developed. They're normally located in a more open area, kind of isolated, and not located on a development like this. So that being the case, I'm not too concerned by 19 or 32.
But did you also, Alderman Harris, that also he said that he got, how much, what percentage of that property is down there?
46% is green space.
How much down there?
46%.
46% of that space down there, what we're talking about, that these will probably be located, is just like, almost like being off to itself with nothing else around it.
But won't that land be owned by this property owner?
It'll be owned by this property owner, but they're not gonna develop and put nothing on it. It's gonna be green space and a retention.
Well, this property owner would have to give the approval to put the tower in there, right?
Yeah, he would have, but we allowing him the ability to put it in there if he want to, if somebody was to approach him.
Well, I understand that. I'm just not too concerned about that happening. Maybe I'm wrong to think that way, but I just can't see this developer allowing that to happen, but could be wrong. And the other thing, the 35 feet restriction in height, the hotel will be higher than that, right?
That's when we say ain't nobody gonna ask for no 35 feet. You could almost, like we said, you could almost eliminate 19.
Yeah.
You could eliminate 19 altogether, man. make it a conditional use down there in 32.
Alderman Harris, did you hear Alderman Miller? He was saying maybe just eliminate 19 altogether and make 32 a conditional use.
I'm fine with it.
And I didn't hear anyone else that wanted to speak, didn't see any hands raised, so is there a motion from this board?
Oh, I'll make a motion. No, that's good. Let me get them back in now.
I gave the clerk my notes. She can't read
You
them.
can't read it. You try to be a doctor, but you weren't smart enough. I'd like to make a motion, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen of an application by MST Development, owner of the property for a zoning map amendment preliminary development plan approval. Ironwood PDU, the subject property is located on the north side of Green T Road East, west side of McInville Road in section 31 and 32, Township 2, Range 7, based upon the finding 1, 2, 3, and with the uses. This is uses of note. I lost my page. You got your page?
Your handy mine is marked here.
All right. With the permitted uses, with 13 deleted, 19 deleted, 24 through 25 deleted,
It's
I think it's 21 through 25.
21 through 25. Conditional use on 32. Conditional use on 33.
Second.
There is a motion and a second.
Along with the staff recommendation also
Of the traffic
of
impact.
the traffic impact statement. Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion and a second.
We get together.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it, the motion passes. Austin, would you move on to item 25? Thank you, Mr. Cates.
All right, the next application is PL 1805. The request is for a final plat approval for Creekside Commercial Subdivision, one lot on 2.63 acres. The lot's located on north side of Creekside Boulevard, east of McInville, north of East Commerce Street in Section 17, Township 3, Range 7. Robbie Jones with Jones Davis Engineering, representing Mr. Mark Anglin, the owner of the property, is the applicant. This is one lot on 2.63 acres. The lot to the west was approved for a one-lot subdivision, so this would be the second half of that same piece of property. It does have access to centralized water and sanitary sewer services. The property zones C2 Highway Commercial District, and that zoning is proposed to remain. So the setbacks you see in your staff report are not proposed to be varied by. The property does include a Blue Line Creek on the eastern border with a narrow amount of floodplain. So there's a 30-foot wide drainage easement and a 50-foot wide preserve area, so that they have to stay away from. All development would be subject to our design regulations, and with this being C2, those would be fully applicable. This was heard by the Planning Commission at our last meeting and recommended unanimously for approval. And the proposed plat is in your staff report. So this is technically phase 2 of the Creekside Commercial Subdivision. So you see the 2.63 acre lot adjacent to lot 1. The standard subdivision conditions are in your staff report and covers all of our needed improvements. And a lot of that would be caught with design review as well. The applicant's here tonight, and I'm available if you have any questions.
What questions do y'all have for Austin?
Is this the hotel site they decided not to build on?
That's correct, yes, sir.
So what's going on with it?
The solar report for the hotel didn't support a vertical structure that tall.
Uh-huh.
And so a different development's coming in, not a hotel in C2. That business owner's here tonight, actually.
Okay.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
Board, Robbie Jones, Jones Davis, 8849 Center Street, South Haven. Don't have much to add. We're just trying to help Mark get that lot recorded, so bring you new business. If you got any questions, be glad to try to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Jones? Is there anybody else here that would like to speak on that item? Well, if not, is there a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to grant final plat approval to the Creekside Commercial Subdivision, one lot, 2.63 total acres, located on the north side of Creekside Boulevard, east of Mackendale Road, north of East Commerce Street, in section 17, Township 3 South, Range 7 West, based upon a finding that the submitted plat generally conforms to the requirements of the city's codes. An ordinance is subject to the following conditions, to include items 1 through 9.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Also, if you'd present item 26.
Yes, sir. This is PL 1806. The request is for final plat approval of first revision of the Hernando Hills Phase 2. The board at a previous meeting voted to sell this piece of property, so technically I'm the applicant and presenting to y'all tonight. The request is to revise the existing common open space lot to be a sequenced lot to be available for sale prior to us actually physically selling the property. The discussion and conditions criteria are all pretty standard. The only applicable one I thought was worth mentioning was that the covenant shall match the existing section of Hernando Hills, so that may be something y'all want to consider as a part of the discussion tonight. It was approved or recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at our last meeting, and there was a discussion from one of the commissioners that asked me to pass along the consideration of a drainage easement as determined by the city engineer, just because it is located below the dam. And so if that's something y'all want to consider, we can include that with our application as well. And the new lot would be re-recorded as just a 1 acre lot sequenced in as Chancery sees fit. I'm not sure if they're going to want me to name it as an individual new lot as a first edition or at the tail end of the existing section. But it'll be just subject to whatever they tell me.
So basically, because originally it was platted as parkland, we're just taking away that designation and making it a buildable lot.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay. Joe, what do you think about putting a drainage easement back there? Do you think that's necessary? It is not. The buyer is buying it as is. So whoever makes the motion on that, we would probably recommend that you make the motion with a drainage easement that'll be drawn on the plat by Joe Lauderdale.
And you said also to add the covenant restrictions that are currently in Hernando Hills?
Yes, sir. It's number 3 on the 12 that I've listed in already, but if y'all didn't want it, this is the time to strike it, but I thought it might be pertinent for y'all to discuss.
I think that would be appropriate since it's right up in there.
Absolutely.
This is the old Bouchon Park that Jim Kimberlin bought, right?
It is.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
A motion to recommend approval of final plat for Hernando Hills Phase 2, first revision by the city of Hernando, subject to staff conditions 1 through 12. Subject property is listed as parcel number 307-307-070-0006-000, located on the east side of Green Tea Boulevard, north of Byhalia Road, and request a drainage easement, or require a drainage easement, whatever the.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. All right, we will move on to item 27, which is the approval of an ordinance to allow golf carts on public streets. As many of y'all know, many citizens asked about an ordinance to allow this, And a few years ago, the legislature got tired of cities coming and asking for special permission. So they passed legislation that says if you're going to do this, here's how you do it. So we tasked Stephen Pittman with writing the ordinance in according with that legislation, and that's what's in front of you. I think y'all probably all had time to read it, and so any comments or questions, you might put them at Stephen. He read the legislation probably more in depth than most of us.
I think it looks good. My only comment was possibly changing the decal to some sort of like flag. I wanted to get the chief's thought on that. Would that be beneficial to y'all?
I think a permanent decal on the golf cart would be better than a flag.
Okay.
Be taken on and off and moved to different carts that might not meet the standards that we have.
Okay.
I think a permanent sticker would be.
All right. Thank you.
Reasonable registration fee. Completely set.
I don't think we're trying to make money off of it, so.
Well, is that what is this the $100? So just kind of like a logistical question. I mean, you'd have to bring your cart here to be inspected. So would we make appointments for that, or?
Not all that has to be coordinated. We've got to have a map drawn up.
Okay.
Streets that are allowable to be used with the golf carts, and you're going to have a process of having the golf carts approved, reviewed, make sure they meet the standards of the ordinance and approved. So, yeah, that's just the ordinance itself, and then the rest of it's got to be, fleshed out.
Will that come through us, or is that something that y'all will handle?
That'd be done administratively.
Yeah, we could administratively
Okay.
set a process.
Yeah, I suggested that it be done just based on the parameters that are set out in the ordinance and looking at, most, all the cities that do this they have all the streets in the city, and then they've got the ones designated that are below 35 miles per hour or meet the standards. And so that needs to be done so people can see that, and you got to have a process to, where to go to get your light, come to the clerk's office, I guess, and make application, and then have it inspected to make sure it meets approval.
And Austin and I have talked about, he'll have the ability, once he figures out which streets are below 35, to make the map for us.
Okay.
When you say inspected, did I hear that you've got to bring the cart up here?
Well, I don't
I
know
would
how else to do
assume-
it. I mean,
You're ready to put it on a trailer and pull it up here? I mean, that's going to be difficult for some folks.
well, y'all talk about how you want to do it.
Yeah. We can hash that out with.
I just
in
wondered
terms
if
of-
that's what I heard right.
Yeah, that's what you heard.
Okay.
It has to be inspected, and I don't think we're gonna go after nobody's house.
Probably not.
Not
And
for
we
$100.
And we can work with other cities and see how they're doing that. That's a good question. How do we do that?
Yeah.
You can't drive it up to the.
Yeah, you can't.
I know, that's what I'm
legally.
saying. I mean,
Right.
I think you do it by type of vehicle. You show the type of
how are
vehicle
other
it is.
cities
yeah.
doing that specifically?
Alderman Wicker, will you state what you
Yeah,
just?
you just show what type of golf cart is it, and then you can see if it meets the specs for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, because the title on them says they're road ready and all that. I think we could just look at the title, because the
But you
people, just like they do when you go get your car tag.
No.
But no, you're gonna want to inspect it, make sure the blinkers work, the horns work, the lights work,
You got to
Yeah.
inspect
all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think mine has anything on it. It needs seatbelts, but the rest of it has, but there's nothing on the paperwork that says that.
Okay.
Mine doesn't either.
Yeah, a lot of people.
We will sort that out.
Need to be sorted out. It's, obviously more burden to the city, to approve these.
It seems to be something a lot of people want to do, though, so we thought it was worth the hassle.
Yeah, just be careful when you do them streets now. You do know that a 35-mile-an-hour street cross into a 45-mile-an-hour street. So how you gonna get from that 35-mile-an-hour street cross to the next one there, you just turn around and go back?
Well, the
And
one
they-
that
and
says
they-
you can drive
35
across
is
them. You can drive across them, you just can't drive down them.
I think it needs to be lowered to
Well,
25, because
some streets,
My
the
golf cart
speed
won't
limit
go
change
35.
Oh,
on
I
the
see what you're
street.
saying, yeah.
Mine won't go 35.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Speed limit do change on the street. So what they gonna do, bag up the street?
Maybe U-turn.
Well, it'll be delineated on the
I ain't got
map.
no golf cart, so it don't matter, you know, I got a bicycle.
I mean, I view it more as like 25 mile an hour and lower is what almost all the neighborhoods are. And that seems to be what the.
But then that wouldn't let people leave their neighborhood to get to another neighborhood. They'd be stuck in their neighborhood.
So give me an example of a road where that, give me an
Well,
example.
okay, so my road is 35 miles an hour. Now, granted, I don't know that I would want to drive a golf cart on it.
I wouldn't.
But if it was, then I could leave my house and drive here on my golf cart
To go to dinner.
to come to a meeting. But if it was 25, then I guess if I could register it and I could trailer it to here and drive around, you know, Halloween or whatever that may be. But I wouldn't be able to leave my home.
I may be wrong, but I think everybody kind of, not everybody, but a lot of the people I've talked to want to have it as an avenue where they can literally leave their neighborhood and drive to town and go to Fratello's or Windy City and have dinner and go back home.
Drunk driving in a golf cart.
They were not allowed to drink alcohol. It's just like a vehicle.
That's even adding
They
something
gonna
extra.
DUI on the golf course. They're gonna have it on a video.
Goodness
Can
gracious.
you see them put that blue light on that golf course going out through there?
Have a motion on that, or?
If you want to.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for the approval of the ordinance to allow golf carts.
Question real quick. Now, just, based upon the conversation that we just got through having, I really don't think $100 is enough money.
I think 100's good.
150?
Okay, we ain't even detailed how much manpower we gotta do to put this in existence.
This is just, the city clerk is the only person that can register these.
A city clerk. Somebody working
city.
under the city clerk can do that.
City clerk?
Yeah. But you have clerks, you have deputy clerks. It's not you specifically.
But I would just like that we, even if we approve $100 a night, that we have the opportunity to go back and raise that fee if necessary, because
Sure.
it might be manpower, especially initially, it's gonna be more manpower than we think.
Initially, it
I
will
don't
be.
know, when people got to trailer it up here, they might
That's
be.
what I was saying,
I'm just
appointments. You
saying,
don't want to bring it up
it's
here
gonna
and
be
not have
less
somebody
applicants. That's
available
kind of a
to.
pain.
We'll work all that
Yeah.
out internally.
That's like I said, if they want the opportunity
I know.
to ride it,
I know.
they ought to have the
I don't have
opportunity to
seatbelts
trail
in mine,
it
but
up.
I've got lights
They
and
don't want to
I
trail
don't
up
have
in, and they
blinkers.
should not be allowed to ride.
Yeah.
Mine will stay in my neighborhood.
Thank you.
Before you make your motion, I don't think we asked for input.
Oh, is there anyone here that wants to speak on that issue? All right. You gonna make your
What's
motion?
gonna be the penalty if one driving a golf course without a registration? What's the fine?
Same as driving any other vehicle without registration, right?
What is that fine?
If you don't have registration for your vehicle, what is it?
He's just gonna write the ticket.
All right, thank you.
Give us a motion.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance to allow golf carts on public streets.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I suck it, man, they ain't got it.
Third. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no.
How about this?
That motion passes. Item 28 is the utility adjustments.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Talking too much, I'm tired.
All opposed, no. This meeting is now adjourned.